This year is the 23rd edition of Arabian Sights, and it is Arabian Sights is a festival that focuses on Arab cinema, films that are made by Arab directors, and films that have content of Arab subject matter. And it's presented under the umbrella of Filmfest DC, and it came about because as you mentioned, I'm the deputy director of Filmfest DC, and so I work on all aspects of Filmfest DC, including the programming. And 23 years ago, there just happened to be a great number of films available worthy of inclusion in the International Film Festival, but it was too many films. It would have been unbalanced. So it seemed realistic to just have a festival that focuses solely on Arab cinema at a time independent of Filmfest DC. Yeah. That way we could highlight all these films that really are worthy to be seen.
Absolutely.
And these are films that would never be seen by an American audience if we weren't able to bring them to Washington to present them. Yeah. And but what happened was when we did the first edition of Filmfest DC, it was only meant to be a one-time event. So many people showed up. We had to turn away people from practically every screening. Wow. And it became evident that we were filling a void. And that there was a hunger for people to see these films. So it was a very nice revelation, and it also made it obvious that we should do this again. Yeah. One of the objectives of Arabian Sights is to make it available to everybody, to make these films, the subject matter that are portrayed in the films that deal with all issues, a lot of social issues, economic, religious, just every political, and it gives a window into the Arab world that the audience is very mixed, by the way.
Absolutely.
Arabs and Americans, and it gives the audience a window into this world like they don't have an opportunity to see.
So let's talk about the films that are being shown today. ASWAT, short films by and about women. Why did you choose to curate these films? Well, we understand why for Arabian Sights, but short films about Arab women seem very timely and a little different. You know, why did you choose to put that together this year?
Well, this year seemed like the appropriate time.
Yeah,
with
right.
all the, yes, that's the most obvious answer, but there is more to it. I actually like to include films directed by Arab women every year because I think what's not really known, what's not apparent to most people, is that there are very accomplished Arab women filmmakers,
right.
and quite a number of them in most film-producing Arab countries. And so I like to highlight them in every film festival. So it's not exactly new that I'm introducing women filmmakers in Arabian Sights. But certainly doing the shorts program seemed like a fresh new way to highlight women even more this particular year. And so I can't tell you how many hours. I saw hundreds of shorts.
Yeah, that was my next question.
Yeah.
How did you go about selecting them? So
it was a lot of fun, and it was very rewarding because I feel that each short is so strong, and I just feel will be so appreciated by the audience. They're not going to walk out and say, I didn't like half the shorts. They are exceptional. They really are.
Resonate with
yes.
Everyone,
right?
Yeah. So we talked earlier in our conversation about using film to bring attention to social issues. Why do you think it's more valuable that these stories are communicated through film rather than maybe reading the news or maybe reading a book? Is there power in seeing it?
There most definitely is. And the issues that are raised in film are told in a narrative, drama, comedies, and documentaries also. But the thing about the features is that they tell stories that everybody can relate to. Stories about family, stories about relationships, s- raising kids.
Yeah. Things that everyone goes through.
Everybody can identify with them, and so the audience walks out of the film with having a link to the characters and to their
Absolutely.
problems,
Yeah.
and the world becomes smaller as a
Yes,
result.
absolutely.
Yeah, and in addition, when we have the director of the film present, then there's an exchange
Right.
after the film during the Q&A, and this is even more, it takes it even to the next level of this connection with the audience, and they realize that, oh, they're young filmmakers or
Yes.
older, but they're, they have the same issues dealing with making the film, or
Right.
same issues in terms of dealing with
Like everything that comes into it.
Yeah.
On Friday night when we saw Heaven Without People, and listening in on the Q&A, exactly what you said happened. You can tell that people were looking at their situation in their lives and looking at the comparison, and then asking Lucien about, what were you trying to accomplish by this, and what were
Yes.
different things that were picked up.
Yes.
I think some of the best questions were about just the cultural lines and dealing with things that are like war,
Yes.
or how our families are torn apart, and how, although maybe some of us may have not experienced such extreme trauma, the way we deal with trauma is still done in the same way.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
And like you said, it makes the world all the more smaller, and it makes people able to empathize.
And his film, Lucien's film, Heaven Without People, deals with so many issues.
Yes.
So it was wonderful to have him there to talk to the audience, because there were a lot of questions, and there were some aspects of the film that they could relate to, but other aspects of the film, it was a Lebanese film that really dealt with a very Lebanese issue.
Right.
So he helped sort of close the gap in that way. Exactly. And then the film took place over Easter brunch,
Right.
a family sitting around a table. And who can't relate
You can't
to that?
relate to meals over family, in those debates that happen in the film as well.
And yes, and it was
Challenge of
funny.
ideas.
I think Lucien mentioned that it deals with a dysfunctional family, and who can't relate to that either?
Everyone has one, right?
Maybe not so many as in this film, but
For sure. A little bit of an exaggeration, but we all identify, right?
right.
Well,
right.
thank you, Shirin, for sitting down with us today.
Thank
This has
you.
been a great conversation, and we hope the audiences, now that they know more about the films, they'll do some research, and hopefully we'll see them next year and in the spring for Filmfest DC.
That's wonderful. Thank you so much. I
Thank you so
appreciate
much,
it.
Shirin. Why did your organization choose to partner with Filmfest DC and the Arabian Sights Film Festival?
So my job I'm at the State Department. So the Fulbright program is actually more than 70 years old. It was started by Senator J. William Fulbright, who's a senator at the time in the 1940s. And the program over the last 70 plus years has actually brought over 380,000 alumni, both from the United States and all over the world, to more than 155 different countries. So when I learned that we had a really impressive filmmaker in Lebanon who had come to the United States for 3 years on a Fulbright grant that we had sponsored, I thought, what better way to showcase this? And I was actually really hoping that we could do a whole Fulbright film festival where we could have Fulbright filmmakers from all over the world come and show their work here in an international showing, and that proved to be a little bit too logistically challenging for us to manage with our staff. So we decided instead that the best way to do it would be to identify an existing film festival. And I've lived in DC for more than 20 years, and I am very familiar with Arabian Sights, and I've worked in the Near Eastern Affairs Bureau at State Department for about 15 years now, and have always gone to shows in Arabian Sights, and I thought, well, this will be a perfect partner for us to showcase our Lebanese Fulbrighters' work. And so when I contacted Shirin, she was really enthusiastic as well, and so we screened the film and thought it might be a good fit, and we just went from there. And then we were able to fund Lucien's travel here in We work together with Amethyst, which is our partner in the program that supports our foreign student program, bringing Arab students here to the United States to get master's degrees.
Wonderful, wonderful. Last question, why is it important that audiences are exposed to this form of art from the Arab community?
Well, I think critical thinking is an incredibly important part of a vibrant civil society and successful society. And I think film is a very interesting way to get people to think critically. And I think in the Arab world, oftentimes in classrooms, it's really rote learning, memorization, things like that. And I think we can reach diverse and very interesting audiences that we're not usually able to tap into through education programs. But we can really expose people to cross-cultural communication through film in particular. So I think that for us, this is just a great opportunity to not only showcase the work of this particular Fulbright grantee that we have, but also to share that with broad audiences across a wide spectrum.
Absolutely. All right, well, that's it for this evening, Kit. That's it for this evening, Kit. But we appreciate you spending some time with us this evening. I hope you enjoy the rest of the reception.
Thank you. I really appreciate it. We are so delighted that we've been able to partner with Arabian Sights on this, and it was nice to meet you guys.
Nice to meet you as well.
Thanks.
Pleasure. How are you feeling today?
I'm great.
Yeah.
This is really exciting actually to be here with
A lot of people have come out to see this.
Yeah, it's really incredible that
Yeah.
a short film program can draw that much of a crowd. It's really a testament to you guys doing a great job.
Wonderful, wonderful.
Yeah.
I'll start. How does it feel when people come out and view your work? What does that feel for you personally?
I mean, it still tickles and makes
Yeah.
me nervous. I was surprised that I was like, oh, I'm still nervous standing in front of a
Yeah.
crowd to talk about the film. But it is, it's so rewarding because
Absolutely.
it's not just the effort that I put into it so much as the effort that everyone who made that film put into it. And so even though I'm the only one standing in front of the crowd, I kind of feel like my whole posse is
Yeah,
with
you're like
me.
representative of the whole crew that
Yeah.
made that happen.
Yeah.
Well, congratulations. It's a really big deal. So tell me about the film. What is the film about?
Battalion to My Beat is a film about a young, rebellious teenage girl who doesn't feel like her worth and her identity is really accepted in the refugee camp where she's growing up. So she decides to run away and to try and join the army to liberate both herself and her people.
Awesome, awesome. So let's talk about the title, Battalion to My Beat. What does that mean?
Well, I think
Or
it's...
how does it relate to the story?
Right. I think it's in terms of... It exemplifies how different she feels and how much of an outsider she feels within her own community. And so she's got a beat of her own, let's say.
Absolutely.
And so it's really just a wordplay on that of identifying as an outsider and finding strength in that in a way for this young girl.
That's very cool. That's very cool. As I think about it, what you explained is kind of what I took away from it.
Oh, yeah?
It's almost as if, and I'll give you my own spin.
Yeah.
When you say Battalion to My Beat, I got that, everyone moves to their own beat. But sometimes other people move in that beat with you, or other people are in that same space. So when you say battalion, I thought of a group of people that kind of move to the same beat of this young girl.
Yeah.
So she was actually representative of a lot of other young girls who feel the same way in her community.
Amazing. That's wonderful. Yeah.
Awesome. I'm glad I got
No,
hit
this
that
is
nail.
what's great about screenings is that things come at you from the audience or from people like you
Yeah.
that you don't fully realize yourself. I
Right.
think that's the great thing about these experiences is that it actually feeds back into my own understanding of the film,
the
which
film
is
and
so
how it
cool.
lands on people, for
Yeah,
sure.
because there's so much that goes on in the subconscious.
Absolutely. As I've talked to the other directors and the executive team from Arabian Sights, they've all touched on the importance of like telling these stories and letting them be open to interpretation. and how, because every person based on their experiences is going to interpret one point a different way, whether I'm male or female or black or white or from the Arab or Japanese, you know, you're going to, whatever your experiences do, drive that forward. So that's really, really cool in that way.
Yeah, it's true.
So, you know, your character in the film grapples with the traditional roles of women being handed down to her. In many aspects, you see like some of the, I think it was her mother who was saying, you know, don't do that, sit here. And then she goes over to the shop and, you know, she was kind of outside of her friends. And then she also didn't wear a hijab in the film, which many of the women did as well. So why did you depict the character in this way?
I think that I chose that because there is heroism in being an outlier in a way. And I have nothing against the hijab. I think that's a very complex, you know, topic.
Yes, absolutely.
And that, you know, I don't believe that Maryam is someone who would grow up to not wear the hijab. Right. That's not really the point. It's more in that moment, she is rebelling against something, and there's always symbolism of rebellions, and that we choose those things in relation to the culture that we grow up in. So some people, it's getting tattoos or getting piercings or wearing or not wearing a hijab. And so I think for me, I think showing a rebellious character, someone who is also about internal strength and identity and and perseverance, really. And she is someone who is, you know, questioning all those things. And as a teenager, you question everything, which is more than we give teenagers credit for. We just think they're young and they're just growing up and, you know, they're messed up. Or
no,
but really, it's
grappling.
like, you're grappling with things that adults older than you find are accepted and normal. While as a 13-year-old, you're still questioning all those things, and you know that you're headed in the direction of those adults. And so you want to put a break to it on some level, and just like, so internally this is what she's grappling with, Maryam, and externally it's also the identity of the Sahrawi people and what that means in terms of, you know, how they are able or not unable to seek freedom in the same way. So it's kind of an analogy.
Things. You know, that's amazing. I know for young people, and especially young women, to see that, and you know, in the teenage years, you're always questioning everything you do, and and should I even be thinking the questions that I'm having? Right. And I think a film like this shows that it's okay to grapple with those things and find your own beat to move to. In that regard. So that's really awesome. Right. So last question. Of course, you are not an Arab woman, but you have created a very nuanced story and really touched on a lot of topics and explained them how I feel in the right way. And so how do you grapple with that? Does it take research? Does it take, you know, empathy with people? What puts you in that space to be able to tell those kinds of stories of cultures that may not necessarily be yours? Right.
I think that you touched on something. Empathy is one. Research, you know, I did traditional research, but really on the ground, it was just, you know, I was hanging out with people, and all the time, right? Just, and it's really just, you know, there's a lot of, and people in Sahara are typically big storytellers. It's the desert nomadic way, and they. And so it's really just through them telling me about their lives or what they're doing that the inspiration came forth. So I feel that if you're true to your source of inspiration and you don't cloud it with preconceptions or judgment, that you're able to paint something that's truthful. I mean, of course, there's me in that film. I have to kind of drive in. I'm making decisions. And I spoke also truthfully about my own experiences there and how I was received well or not well, depending on the circumstance and who I was speaking to or meeting. So I think as long as, anyway, this sounds so cheesy, but as long as you're truthful to your own experiences, and it's an emotional experience. Absolutely. It's really not from the head or from the intellect. Yeah. And if you're true to what you've received from the people who've opened up to you, then then that marriage should be strong enough to hold
To make an
nuance.
authentic piece.
Yeah, authentic, or at least to speak to the realities of some people there. And I'm not trying to make, the cliched like universal story.
Right.
It's not with that intention, but it is how are my experiences and the experience I learned of how can they act as a connective tissue in the story?
Well, you said something that's I think is really powerful about empathy, because a little bit about myself. I work with children and to produce podcasts in Washington DC, and to start to figure out what we wanted the podcast to be about and how we want to frame it in their minds, we had what we called empathy interviews, where we would ask the children just various questions about, what's going on at home, what's going on, what do you like to talk about, all of these different things. But from there, we were able to determine ABC student needs this because of this through the stories that they've told me, not necessarily through any type of research or anything
survey,
beyond just connecting with that person. And you've said that, you had those friends, you had those people that you talked to that, you had the research, of course, because everyone can pick up the book, but actually hearing those stories from those people and relating to them and building relationships with them helps you better represent them, because now what they've told you has become a part of you. Right.
Yeah, it's true. That sounds like an amazing thing that you do also. And I think there's a way that it's so interesting working with children, and because they're honest.
Absolutely.
And they don't cloud they don't cloud their vision
At
and
all.
It's that earnestness, and I think that the people that I connected with the most in Sahara ultimately also people who we had that kind of connection with. There's an earnestness and a desire to connect, and then I think the story, especially in the way that I work, it just comes about with the actors, or because they're all non-actors, but with their stories, their experiences, and you kind of keep feeding. You keep feeding the character and the story through that. So it's very kind of organic in the way in its process. But
awesome. Well, you know what? That's enough. Thank you so much for sitting with me, Eimi. An amazing film. I thoroughly enjoyed it. I've watched it several times, and I hope that our audiences get to check it out more. And, maybe, hopefully, another film. I hear you got something else coming down the pipeline, so hopefully next time you're in DC, we get a chance to chat.
Yeah. All right. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
It's
Take care.
a pleasure.